Lakeland, we are back, and I am honored, I'm privileged, and I'm humbled to be here unequivocally with one of my favorite English teachers, also the reigning 2018-2019 Teacher of the Year, Mr. Eric White. Mr. White?
Thank you, Mr. Novak.
You can talk over me. He's Teacher of the Year. Mr. White, thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Mr. White is here to talk about his new elective his new elective that's going to be running next year, and that new elective is called what?
It's called Science Fiction, Literature, and Film.
Before you go into any sort of details about the class, which obviously we're going to, you're going to chat me up about that. The course is open to whom? Freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors?
Correct. Basically, anyone who wishes to take the class can take the class.
So it's an elective, English elective, that's going to be open for students 9 through 12.
9 through 12.
There are no prerequisites.
There are no prereqs at all.
It is open as open can possibly be.
Absolutely. If you're breathing, you can take the class.
And that's a prerequisite for life, I assume. Mr. White, chat me up, man. Tell me about science fiction, literature, and film. Tell me a little bit about the course.
Okay. We live in a world where technology is very clearly not only here to stay, but it runs a lot of our lives.
Sure.
So being that it runs our lives, it's really important that we, at the very least, offer some type of skepticism as to how much it should run our lives, what impacts is the technology going to have on us in a moral sense, how is the technology itself going to affect the way that we understand human beings in the future, what it means to be human, since the technology is very clearly going to be modifying our emotions, our physical abilities, that type of sense. So the class is really focused on how should we as human beings lead a moral life, given that technology is going to change basically everything that we know.
And you're going to be able to do that through multiple mediums, right? So obviously,
Absolutely.
You're going to be immersed in science fiction. I know we have a relatively rough idea of the things you're going to be reading and watching next year. Do you want to give me a general idea of some of the books you're going to be reading, some of the authors?
Sure,
You know.
Absolutely. I have a tentative reading list. It may change a bit, but works such as Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card, we'll be looking at. That has to do with imagine an alien invasion, and we actually have to put our video game skills to use in order to fight those creatures.
Cool.
So I'm sure that just about every student here at Lakeland would excel at that kind of scenario.
Yeah.
We have works such as The Martian by Andy Weir. A human being gets trapped on Mars after we first start our human exploration of Mars, and what are the problems, the issues that surround trying to get back to Earth. There are stories from some of the older pieces of science fiction, pieces like 2001: A Space Odyssey, which I guess in effect is not as old as, let's say, Isaac Asimov works, but it's still going to talk about really relevant issues such as AI. How is AI going to change our involvement with each other? How are we going to interact with AI? What happens when AI decides to take over, because it's going to.
Yeah.
So we have a whole smattering of different pieces to look at throughout the whole course, with the films or films that are thematically connected right in the mix of it all. We'll probably be blogging and such, so we'll be doing some online work as well to try to really give our students, or give the students, a sense of voice in the class. So it's not just me talking for 80 minutes, because that'll bore me anyway. So
Gotcha. Listen, as Teacher of the Year, I can listen to you talk for hours and hours and hours. That's my cheap plug for Teacher of the Year. So you kind of led me into it. You talked about blogging. What are some of the other things you're actually going to be doing in class? We know that you're going to be reading contemporary works, and you're going to be reading some older works, and you're going to be obviously applying those things to the world in which we live and asking these moral questions, right? What are some of the things you're actually going to be doing in class?
Okay, well, we're going to certainly look at projects that are being sponsored by big companies.
Because everybody thinks English. They think, all right, we have a 5-paragraph essay, we have a 5-paragraph essay, we have a 5-paragraph essay. And listen, in the world in which we live, where written communication skills are so far and few between, as a job candidate moving forward, what is going to separate you from somebody else, I'm going to tell you right now, as somebody who reads dozens of resumes and cover letters, your ability to effectively communicate. So there is a place for expository writing, and there's a place for research-based writing too. Your class really isn't like that, though, right? I mean, it's going to be a little bit different than a contemporary English class, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
This class focuses on ideas primarily. So as far as the requirements go, There will not be any major research paper. There's not going to be any type of, really any formal essays.
Yeah.
A lot of the writings will be informal, which
Okay.
means you can use informal language. That doesn't mean cursing all throughout a blog post.
Yeah, no,
There's-
we frown on that. Yeah.
Right. But it does mean that students have the chance to at least speak to each other more in their own way of speech, their own
Sure.
vernacular, so that it's not something that's very uptight or formal, is a more specific way to put it. But those informal writings will allow them to actually have an audience. They'll have other people reading their work rather than just me. So the whole class has a larger dynamic involved rather than just the teacher-student dynamic.
Cool. All right, Mr. White, at this time, we're going to go back to camera 2. There we are. We're right. You can see ourselves up there. It's great, right? They say the camera adds 10 pounds, but I just, shirt's a little bunchy. All
I think I
right.
just adjusted my ear. I don't have one. That's
Mr. White, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for talking about your class. One more thing I just want to say about Mr. White and being Teacher of the Year. Prior to this, Mr. White being able to offer this elective, exclusively he teaches seniors. So you would have to wait 1, 2, 3 in your 4th year in high school to have the ability to take a class from Mr. White, who my bias is coming through, an English teacher, phenomenal English teacher. Now you have the ability as an incoming freshman, you won't see this, but as a sophomore or junior, you have the ability to sign up for this class and take it. Mr. White, one more plug. I'm an undecided sophomore.
Okay.
I'm going to be a junior next year. I have a lot of electives. Why should I take yours?
My class is going to look at stuff that requires us to be incredibly skeptical of the technology that we use and love. And in the process, I think we're going to find that there's a lot of room to continue to love that tech, but to use it even better. And we're going to watch a lot of awesome movies.
And we're going to have a lot of fun in class.
And
So,
we'll have a lot of fun.
Mr. White, again, one more time, I want to say in a public forum, congratulations. Very well deserved Teacher of the Year. Mr. White, thank you very much for being here. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
All right. All right, Lakeland, we're back with a former Teacher of the Year now. Hopefully this goes in order that we're filming it in. So we go from Mr. White to Mr. Placenti. But this is Mr. Joe Placenti, who is going to be here to talk about, again, it's a little bit more nuanced. It's not totally a new elective, but we're taking an old elective and we're moving it in a totally different direction. First of all, Mr. Placenti, thank you very much for being here, man. We appreciate
Thank
it.
you for having me.
All right, you don't have a choice, you have to be here. So,
This is true.
now on this camera. Mr. Placenti, you have a new course that's running next year, kind of. What's it called?
It's actually, the old version was called Current Issues, but this one's actually, we've rewritten the curriculum. It's Current Issues and Popular Culture.
So, before we go into anything, you're going to chat me up about the class, but before we go into that, it's open to whom? What grades can take your course?
Anyone from 10th, 11th, and 12th can take it. I have been sort of advertising the new course, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
All right, chat me up, Mr. Placenti. We talked about changing the course from
Yeah.
current issues to popular culture, or, talking about obviously current issues as well, in addition to popular culture. Chat me up, though. What's the class about, man? What are we going to be learning in class?
It's really looking at today's issues. So it could be anything from LGBTQ, drugs, media, technology, even if you're interested in social media. It's really about looking at what's happening in America through the lens of popular culture.
Cool.
Because people don't really look at the development through the 20th century of pop culture as an influence on what is normal in regards to behavior, politics, you name it, popular culture can describe it. And done the right way, it can be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's look at that fun component to it,
Yeah.
right? Because a lot of people, they hear history class and they think back to their middle school experience. Not that middle school was bad.
And they're like, so boring.
But talking about like taking notes and doing outlines and things like that, your course is not going to be like that though, right?
No.
Okay.
The course is going to be a lot of sort of projects, discussion, and some great readings from a new book that
Yep.
we've sort of purchased for the course.
Yep.
And we're looking at everything from TV shows like The Big Bang Theory, watching that and analyzing it for elements of scientism, or how Facebook and Instagram have impacted the past 20 years of youth culture.
Yeah, very much so.
It can be so much fun. Most recently, we've sort of analyzed and dissected Captain America: Civil War for political ideologies. And
Yeah.
so there's an element of the humanities in regards to the content, but how we approach it is just a lot of fun. I love going to work every day doing this. Yeah.
And that probably is reason number one that you should take the class, is because you have a teacher who's exceptionally passionate about the content, and that's a number one, the most important thing I think that we need in the classroom, right? Reading and writing, very much important, and that's inherent in everything that we do. But teacher effectiveness really goes, in my opinion, getting kind of deep into the weeds, how passionate a teacher is about the content area, and obviously you're very passionate about it. As a former history teacher myself, been out of the classroom now for a few years. Teacher of the year.
Say former.
Well, the former history teacher is actually my 10th year anniversary. Everybody's going to get a commemorative plate from when I won Teacher of the Year back in 2008, 2009. So big shout out to me. So as a former history teacher, I understand how important it is to study history, because you want a general idea of kind of, everybody ends their essays with, and this is the reason we are where we are today.
Yes.
And in some cases it's true, and in some cases it's not. But
in this course,
it's
actually true.
Yeah, it is.
Because looking at pop culture of today, you really have to sort of look backwards at the past 20, 30 years. Looking at fashion trends or media. Most recently, we've looked at the history of wearing hoodies, the history of camo.
Yeah.
There's all this great sort of ways of looking at how those things are influenced by socioeconomics. Those things are influenced by geography, the civil rights movement, the women's rights movement. That's really what we're analyzing in the class. And I think it's just a great way to approach it.
And the great thing, and we'll go to camera 2 now, because we are desperately out of time at this point. I can say that one of the great things about this class is the fact that there really is something to appeal to everybody. I know recently we were talking about like a hip hop in culture unit that you're doing.
Yes.
So, I know
analyzing the evolution of rap and hip hop through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and today.
And that's crazy important to kind of understand this general civil rights movement that we're kind of seeing today. And there's so much cool stuff that you can do with it, and there's so many cool things that are going on in the class right now. And as we're kind of transitioning more to this popular culture, there's even better things that you're going to be doing. So when you think about taking this class, you're not sitting here and hearing a lecture for 80 minutes. You're not sitting and you're not writing for 80 minutes. You're not even taking, conventional tests. It's a lot of project-based learning. You're doing a lot of projects. Yeah. You're looking at a lot of video clips. You're hearing a lot of audio clips. You're analyzing song lyrics and things like that. So it's a really cool class to take.
And it's really student-driven, because really the students come in with the expertise of knowing a lot about what we're actually talking about to begin with.
Yeah.
And we add context.
These kids are hips. They know what a meme is. Mr. Placenti, so I'm an undecided sophomore. You have 8 seconds to tell me why I should why I should take this class next year.
In 8 seconds?
10, 12, nobody's counting anymore.
The easy sell that I would give is simply, if you want to have a fun time in a class that you're absolutely going to love, I promise you it will be your favorite class of the year.
And he puts his stamp on that. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Joe Placenti, thank you for being here, buddy. We appreciate it. Thanks for coming out. We appreciate it.